Burgess Watson in the newsroom. The U.S. debt showdown is a tale of competing narratives, but what we do know is that it's got one big deadline. Lawmakers have till August 2nd, next Tuesday, to agree on a plan to raise the debt ceiling, or else the world's largest economy could default on its debt. And all eyes are on one man at this point. The Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, John Boehner, caught between something of a backbench revolt from conservative Republicans and a Democratic-controlled Senate, which wants to raise that debt ceiling nearly 2.5 times further than Boehner does. Now, if for some the gridlock and posturing out of Washington is almost comical, as you can see in this cartoon by Tom Tolles that was in the International Herald Tribune, where you see the economy go over a cliff while Republicans and Democrats joust, world markets don't find it all that funny. Wall Street meekly rebounding from its worst day of trading in 8 weeks, the Dow on Wednesday losing 200 points. So what happens if there's no deal? Why are the battle lines so entrenched over this one? And who will be the political winners and losers of this battle? Today in the France 24 debate showdown in Washington, and joining us from the U.S. Capitol, reporter Jim Barnes, who follows public opinion at the National Journal. Thanks for being with us. We want to thank as well Zachary Miller of Democrats Abroad France, Tom McGrath of Republicans Abroad France, and Desine, who's sort of the outsider looking in on this one. She teaches American Studies at the University of Paris at Nanterre. And from Nashville, Tennessee, Judson Phillips, founder of Tea Party Nation. Thank you for being with us. And we want to thank our viewers for their comments and questions on the France 24 Debate Facebook page and also on Twitter, where our handle is @FrancoisF24. Let's begin with Jim Barnes in Washington. The front page of your website has a ticking countdown to default on it. They say that politics is the art of the possible. Despite all the rhetoric, is there a deal in the offing soon?
I don't think there's a deal in the offing yet, as most of Washington waits to see whether or not House Speaker John Boehner can get his proposal through his own chamber. The House Republicans had a closed-door meeting this morning, and things went well. Apparently, there was a lot of support and unity, but we really won't know what happens until the roll call is called.
What's your prediction on this one, Tom McGrath? How's that vote going to go? Are Republicans going to band together?
I think it's going to be very close, but I think it's working out to the Republicans' advantage in a certain sense right now, because if the Republicans and if the House of Representatives approve this plan, the Boehner plan, it becomes clear that they're not going to do it with all of the Republicans. There's going to be a lot of Republicans who are disappointed by this plan right now. It doesn't go far enough in cutting spending and reducing the overall deficit. But if that passes the House, it'll kind of signal to the Senate that this is it, take it or leave it, we can't do any better. This is all we're going to get through. And if the Senate comes to some sort of terms very close to what the House is proposing, Obama will be in a very, very difficult position to veto that. It'll pretty much be he has to take it at that point.
Zachary Miller, in a way, the Republicans now setting the tone, since it is all eyes on what they're doing.
Well, the other question is it the Republicans or is it people behind the scene who are not even really Republicans, So I'm wondering, what the whole aspect of the Tea Party is going to play on whether Boehner does what he wants to do or whether he does what more reactionary elements of his party want him to do.
Judson Phillips, your thoughts on that?
Well, which part? This is, excuse me, this truly is really too close to call. We've been doing kind of some unofficial head counting here. And, our math is that if two more Republicans defect from the Boehner proposal, it's not going to pass. That's assuming, of course, no Democrats are going to join and vote on this thing. And I think that's probably a pretty safe bet.
And that's what you'd like to see. You'd like to see the bill fail.
Yeah, I would, because number one, the bill doesn't really do anything. It gives us an immediate $900 billion increase in the debt ceiling. and it gives us $917 billion in cuts spaced out over a 10-year period. And of course, what we know about these future cuts, that's just an exercise in creative fictional writing, because any cuts you set to go out 5 years from now, a future Congress can just as easily undo. So that's basically a non-existent cut. It's a phantom cut.
Tom McGrath, in other words, you've got a hard sell here within your own ranks. By the Senate.
It's true, and it's also made complicated by a bit of history here. You remember there are two other big deficit reduction exercises in Washington, one in 1983 with Reagan and the Democratic Congress, and another in 1991 with George Bush and the Democratic Congress. And in both instances, Reagan and Bush agreed to raise taxes on the promise that there would be $3 of spending cuts for every new dollar in taxes, and those never materialized. There's never been an example of increasing taxes being used to reduce the deficit. It just has to come first with spending cuts, and I think your colleague over there in the U.S. is absolutely right. Right now, the focus is on spending cuts because next Congress can override any agreement done right now.
So you two would like to see the bill fail?
No, I don't think I would like to see it fail, but it's not going to really be resolved until we have another presidential election.
Mm-hmm. So what do you do in the interim?
I think you have to raise the debt ceiling as little as possible and keep the leash as short as possible and impose as many spending cuts as you can now.
All right, and of course, if you reduce the debt ceiling by $1 trillion, which is what the Republican plan says, that means there could be another vote before that 2012 presidential election on this matter.
Yeah, I think that's what the Republicans want, and I think but we're just talking about cuts. We're not talking about the taxes. Right now, it's very different from when Reagan was elected, because never before has there been this big gap between the rich and the poor. Never before has the profits been soaring for corporations that don't pay very many taxes or don't have to pay taxes at all, and now the corporations are a person. Now the Supreme Court have also given them that right. So we're in a whole totally different ballgame, and right now there's just too much power. There's just too much freedom for the corporate world here.
Andesine.
Yeah. I think this bill will achieve nothing. It is just political posturing. We're talking about a small
Nothing
amount.
at all.
No, because there has to be another vote in a few months. So I think the Republicans are playing politics so that can be the debate again. But this whole discussion is about raising the debt ceiling, that is to say how much the government can pay. It's not a question of reducing expenditures and promising, and I don't think a balanced budget is a good idea, but it says nothing about how balancing the budget in the future, how trying to save, except on that limited amount of money. Now, it's only artificial. I think 78 times this debt ceiling has been increased, and 49 times under Republican president. So it shows that this is something that has been going on. And I agree, there's a trend towards more and more spending, and how can we stop that? And we could say the same in France and in Europe. How do we stop spending, especially when there is so much entitlement and aging population, Medicare, Social Security? Now, there is also some truth that there is a lot of inequality, and that the Republicans always are in bad faith when they say we cannot increase taxes.
We'll get back in a moment to that issue of the long-term consequences. I just want to remind viewers who perhaps are not in the U.S. that really at the center of it all is John Boehner, the Republicans winning Congress in last fall's election. It is the biggest test, arguably, of his political career, selling his plan to the public and to his Republican majority in the House.
It's reasonable, it's responsible, it can pass the House, and it can pass the Senate. And I hope the president will consider signing it into law.
That's what he said on the record on Wednesday. Off the record, well, a little bit of a different story. This is the bill. He told congressmen House Republicans in a closed-door session, and he advised them to, quote, get your ass in line. I want to ask you, Jim Barnes, how is John Boehner doing so far in this?
Well, he's under some pressure, and he's sweating a bit. I think he's got a very difficult job to hold his conference of Republicans together. You've definitely got one element tends to be more seasoned House members who are more pragmatic and are more inclined to deal. You've got an influx also of 87 freshman Republicans who were elected in the midterm elections in 2010. And generally speaking, they've been skeptical of business as usual in Washington. And they will say that's why they got elected in the first place. I think that, this is a big test for Speaker Boehner. I think a lot of observers felt that he did very well when he had some tough talks with the president earlier this year over a continuing budget resolution, and that he probably came out maybe in the eyes of a fair number of people, maybe a little bit ahead of the president. But this is a whole new kind of ball game. And you've got a lot of observers, I think, on Wall Street and elsewhere who are very nervous that Republicans have chosen to pitch this fight over the long-term budget of the U.S. By attaching it to a debt ceiling increase.
Now, Boehner called soft by his conservative wing and a prisoner to the radical right by the Democratic Senate Majority Leader who spoke on Wednesday.
Nobody believes that the Boehner problem is anything more than a big wet kiss to the right wing, and I mean the Tea Party. That's who I mean. It's too bad his caucus is being run by such a small number of people.
Tom McGrath, Tom Friedman in the New York Times this Thursday, calling it makes equivalent of being beholden to the Hezbollah wing of the Republican Party. What is your?
I can understand how a Democrat would feel that people who want to cut spending are really terrorists. To them,
the Tea Party's
more
not
government
holding
equals
your
better
party
government,
hostage.
more spending equals stimulus, and it hasn't worked. And now that there's a serious group of Americans who have voted for Republicans to take control of the House of Representatives and potentially increase their presence in the Senate, it's clear that the Democrats feel frightened. There are some people who really want to get government spending under control. They're going to be name-calling. I saw the House leader, not Pelosi, but Hoyer, his number two, saying Republicans have loaded their pistol and want to empty all their guns on Obama on this issue. I mean, it's showing how I think the Republicans kind of have the upper hand in this situation right now, and it's got a lot of Democrats very nervous.
The issue right now is 4 days to go, and we actually don't know who's got the upper hand at this point.
No, I don't think we do. We're not behind those closed doors, so we really don't know what's going on. But I do think that a lot more Republicans, a lot more traditional Republicans, are a lot more nervous than Democrats about what's going on in their party, and I think they should be.
In a poll out earlier this week, the Pew Research Center said 68% of voters want the lawmakers they agree with to come to some sort of deal. Let me ask you, Judson Phillips, when you look at those numbers, 68% say they're willing for a compromise, even if it means a deal you disagree with. What's your reaction? Are you being perhaps too hard-headed?
Well, first of all, there's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's polls from the Pew Institute. So, you got to deal with that. But here's the thing that Republicans do not understand. And we just try to get their attention and get them to understand. A compromise is not a goal. Victory is a goal. Compromise is a tool you use along the way to get victory. All John Boehner's doing with his plan is hauling up his freshly laundered white flag of surrender. And so that's why we're objecting so strongly to it. It's not that we don't want a deal. We would love to have a great deal. If we can get a deal that cuts spending significantly, doesn't increase taxes, doesn't increase the debt ceiling, we'd be all over that. Unfortunately, what John Boehner's giving us is a very bad deal.
Hang on a second. Let me just ask you something. In 1994, the Republicans won Congress. there was a Democratic president in office. They drew a line in the sand. There was a lockout of the federal government, and the Republicans got battered next time around at the polls. So is it a good idea to be intransigent, to stick to your guns, even if it means default?
Well, first of all, it doesn't necessarily mean default. August 2nd is not the magic date. Geithner has given us some indication it would be perhaps a few days beyond August 2nd. Bloomberg 2 days ago said, well, it would be early September because there's enough cash on hand. But there's a huge difference between 1995, when Gingrich and Clinton went at it, and today. In 1995, you had a virtual news monopoly by the left. You didn't have the internet either. Today, you don't have either one of those as true. You've got everything from Fox News to Drudge on the internet to blogs to other things that will get the conservative message out. And don't forget, at the end of the day, if the economy tanks, Obama's the guy who's going to get blamed for it, not the Republicans. And by holding strong on this particular issue, this is a huge issue to hold strong on. Go look at Greece, for example. Their economy's in a death spiral right now due to uncontrolled spending and uncontrolled debt. This is America's future if we don't get a hold of our spending and our debt. So there are certain issues that are worth being intransigent over. There are certain issues that are worth drawing the line in the sand on. And this is very clearly one of those issues.
Jim Barnes in Washington, I just want you to react on the back of that. Is it true that it'll be the Democrats who get blamed if there's default?
No, I'm not. I'm not sure of that at all. I think all sides are going to be blamed, and I think at the end of the day, the one thing that may get this deal done is that both sides realize that incumbents in both of their parties, from the president on down to the House members, will share some burden of blame and responsibility if there is a default.
Zach Miller, fair point.
Well, let me get back to his original point. That's the thing that Mr. Phillips just said, that Obama will be blamed for it if the government tanks. And that's the key phrase right there. That's what they want. They want the government to tank so that Obama is blamed for it. They care more about winning than they do about the country. And that's what the problem is.
I sure appreciate people who can read my mind. I mean, that's just absolutely amazing that this guy who I've never met before can read my mind and tell me what I want. No, I said Obama would be blamed. I didn't say I wanted that. You are trying to make stuff up.
You said it as it's a positive thing.
Well, I think you can also look at some other polls. Associated Press came out with polls this week as to whether or not Obama is viewed favorably or unfavorably on certain major issues, which I think will dominate the 2012 campaign. And on the economy, unemployment, and the deficit, people are opposed by a net margin of 20% and 30%. These are important issues, and he's operating at a huge deficit right now. People have already made up their mind. They don't like the way he's dealing with the deficit, the economy, and unemployment. And he's not doing anything to improve his situation with this situation on the debt.
And when we come back, we'll take a look at the long-term effects of this showdown. Stay with us. The France 24 debate continues.